Hey, happy Sunday. We want to wish you a fantastic Sunday as you join us here for another episode of the Now That You Mention It podcast with Roll, Jay, and RJ. Of course, I'm Roll.
And I'm Jay.
And I'm RJ.
And we thank you guys for tuning in again and checking us out as we continue our movie challenge. Before we get into the program here, we want to remind you to please subscribe, like our YouTube page, ding the little bell for notifications. Also, if you haven't already, check us out on the audio formats Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And for those of you that are listening on those formats, we thank you for your time. Please check our Facebook page, Instagram, and check us out on Reddit as well. If you can, make sure to follow us, turn on notifications so you get notified anytime another one of our episodes drops. And leave us a rating if you can. We'd greatly appreciate it. And don't forget, you're always welcome to leave us a comment on each one of our episodes. We really do appreciate the fan feedback. So with that said, guys, let's get into our next chapter. I think we need to announce first, right? Don't we need to announce who the...
Yeah, hold on. But anyways, so it looks like based on fan vote, Casablanca is going to win there. 7-8 in favor of Casablanca. So Parasite got 7 votes. Casablanca got 8. Close draw, like I think we all thought it would be. I know you, Uncle JJ, opened up some fan voting on Vaughn's Cinema Group. So yeah. What were the results for that?
Add it all together with both polling that we took. It was Casablanca took it 15-13.
Yeah, I mean, still very really super close. And then obviously on our score it was 3-1 based on the overall score. So look, I mean, like I said last week, and you'll probably hear me say it a couple times more, but really just unfortunate, and the unlucky draw, because had either of these movies gone up against anything else, really, I think in this first round, I think they would have won. But that's the luck of the draw. So Casablanca will be moving on, and we'll have that graphic for you. Probably, this episode will be uploaded Sunday, obviously, but we'll probably have that Friday. So keep a lookout for that. And I guess let me pass it on over to Mr. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. You want to get us into it, boss?
Sure. So, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. This movie came out in 1979. It was roughly about an hour and 42 minutes runtime. And it basically revolves around a very fantastical, if you will, storyline of a professional basketball team that's it that is very subpar, even though they have a noted superstar in their team, and they wind up scrapping the whole team and selecting new players based on astrological signs. The team then begins to experience a high level of success because of their newfound compatibility and working together, if you will, despite the fact that they don't even really practice together. But, who knows? This film stars, of course, the great Dr. J. Julius Erving. A couple other stars of note. Has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jonathan Winters, who plays a couple of different roles in the movie. Meadowlark Lemon, who many of us will remember from the great Harlem Globetrotters.
The Harlem Globetrotters were awesome.
They were fantastic.
They're still around. What do you mean were?
Well, that's true. You're right.
But that era of Harlem Globetrotters,
that rendition is what you meant.
Yeah,
but they're not dead.
And then, of course, the very striking Stockard Channing. So that all said, this film is really layered with disco and psychedelic overtures, designs, and themes. and revolves around basketball, which may or may not be a timely topic given the fact that some of the other things going on in the NBA and the boycotts right now. So that said, let's open it up. Jay, why don't you tell us what you think about the fish that say Pittsburgh?
Well, first and foremost, let me just say, Luka's getting hosed over here because, he's not only is he taking a beating. That guy tried to end his career last night with that whole foot thing, and FLA. That's all I can say.
No. Before you get into it, I completely agree with you. I was showing my dad the clip earlier this afternoon. The guy clearly, from all angles, made a play to go for Luka's ankle. Yeah. But more importantly, these are the same referees that threw out KP in game, what was it, 1 or 2?
Game 2.
Yeah, so I find it very not very coincidental, but I don't know. I very, very peculiar that, game 6, the chance the Mavs have to go up on title favorites, they bring the same crew in. Kind of seems weird if you ask me. But yeah.
But yeah, I just the whole thing is with Rick Carlisle getting ejected, with the text and look, here's the thing. We all know, everybody knows it. The NBA wants certain teams in certain playoff brackets. They don't like it when their plan doesn't go according to their plan. And Luka, for as great as he is, can't overcome not only not having KP there and facing what is a top 5 defense, but having to overcome the refs too. So again, FLA. Now back to the movies. Man, I remember watching The Fish That Say Pittsburgh, bro, when we were little. Yeah. And I remember when we were kids how awesome it was to watch a movie with an actual NBA player, because back then a lot of the movies that we saw about sports were revolving around, it didn't have a whole lot of, your athletes weren't actors at that point, like they are now. I think with when Michael Jordan did Space Jam,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
that kind of pulled a lot of athletes into that whole realm of wanting to be actors. And now you have so many people who cross over. You have musicians who want to be athletes who want to be musicians, and movie stars. And so, this was one of the really first big movies that had an athlete in a starring role.
Well, I'm gonna hit pause on you right there, bro. I think as far as our movie conscience, I agree with you. However, I will say that when we go back, if we were to go back and this would be a topic for another one of our episodes, to go back and look historically at sports figures that transitioned into acting roles. Because I think if you look at Alex Karras, who really was in TV in the Webster series. I also think you look at Dick Butkus and oh my gosh, his partner they were in the Airwolf series for a while. Golly, he came out in Police Academy as Hightower. God, why can't I think of his name? But you know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So I think that there were sprinkled in a number of athletes that have made a good transition. I just can't remember if by 1979. I think you may be right that this might precede most of those other athletes making the transition. Yeah. But that said,
you're talking about Bubba Smith.
Bubba Smith, yeah.
But I think that when you look at it in terms of, I think really at that time, really the only other big name athlete you would have seen go into a starring role or even having a big role in a movie like that was Gale Sayers in Brian's Song. But when you look at the names that you just put, Alex Karras, he was one of the first NFL players to transition into acting role. But Alex Karras, Dr. J, Dr. J was a superstar. There's no other way about it. Gale Sayers, was a big star, superstar as well in football. But Bubba Smith, he was a big name, but he wasn't a superstar. Dr. J was it. Dr. J was the it guy at the time, especially in the NBA.
Right.
You had, the big players, Kareem. You had Dr. J. You had, Bird and Magic were coming into the league. Were just coming into their own. But Dr. J was that first really big name to get that starring role in the movie. And, I think that he did a good job with it. The problem was the script that he had to work with was terrible. Dude, this thing had so many. I mean, I started watching it, and right off the bat, you got a guy in the middle of a game talking about trade me, to the point where he's got it written on his body. He pulls his shirt up to show the coach, hey, trade me in the middle of the game. First of all, that would never happen. And, I know this is not the NBA, or it's not supposed to be the NBA, but it is supposed to be a professional league that's being televised, because you got Chick Hearn announcing games. You got, this movie was obviously, when we get to the rating, star power of this movie was really, really big. I mean, it had some really big names in there. But, the story, I mean, they lose the game. A little kid first of all, a kid like that would never have access to a star player in any sports franchise, that he can just walk up to him when he's soaking in the hot tub or whatever he was in, the ice tub, and tell him, hey, you know what you need? You need, astrology in your life. You gotta, he goes, let me look at my horoscope. And that's kind of the premise for the whole movie is, hey, we're going to build a team around, all the players of all the same of the zodiac sign, Pisces. So, a little kid masterminds the whole thing, goes out, finds a psychic. Then him and the superstar have this moment where the little kid's driving his Rolls Royce. Again, that would never happen, because what psycho superstar is going to let a 10-year-old little kid who can't reach the pedals drive his Rolls Royce, not just around the block to give it a turn to see how he can do. Oh, yeah. He takes it on the highway into the city. Yeah. Okay. And then they go recruit Stocker Channing and get in to talk to the owner of the franchise and convince the owner of the franchise, who acts like a 12-year-old little kid, to hey, let's break down our team of professionals, right? Ship them off somewhere else, hold open tryouts in the middle of the season, hire a whole new squad based on just the fact that they're all Pisces, and let's go win some basketball games, And not only that, hey, we're not even going to practice together. We're just going to throw them out there for the first game for the first time together, and let's go out and blow out an NBA, another professional team. Dude, give me a break.
Man, you're doubting the magic of astrology?
Yes.
Man, wow.
Yeah. I'm one of those people that I believe that you could read any astrology horoscope for the day, and you could feel that it applies to you. I mean, I don't know. There may be some slight truth to the science of astrology, but
look at it this way, dude. If you're basing your life on a horoscope, then you're one of those guys that's playing lotto tickets based on the numbers on the back of a fortune cookie. Get out of here, man. Man. And then on top of that, they start winning. They go on an improbable 14-game win streak. Mm-hmm. Get into the playoffs. And right before the start of the playoffs, our owner's going to decide, hey, not only are we going to get new uniforms, but we're going to change the name of the team right before the playoffs. And then, first of all, what league would let a basketball team play on that floor? Okay, there have been some iconic floors in the history of basketball. Parquet at Boston Gardens, the Lakers at the old Coliseum, their floor comes to mind. They're iconic floors. But I'm sorry, they're not putting a full-blown fish and blue tile down to play basketball.
Not just blue, but sparkling.
Sparkling blue. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to even up the series 3-piece with the team from Los Angeles, because we can't even give, the team from Los Angeles a team name. And in the final game, which is an East Coast game, by the way, because they're playing on Pittsburgh's home court, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
They start the game at such a late time that all they have to do is make it to midnight to win. I'm sorry, ain't no East Coast game going to midnight, buddy. We're gonna let the band dictate how long the halftime's gonna be, right? And then coming in to start the game, the roof opens and a freaking hot air balloon comes down to bring the team from Pittsburgh. Okay. Of all the things in this movie that I don't buy, that's my biggest pet peeve, because if you've ever been in a stadium with a roof that retracts and opens, man, it takes 45 minutes for that to happen in a fast time. That thing ain't opening in no 10 seconds to let a hot air balloon in and then closing right back up. So, yeah, the whole plot of this movie is ridiculous.
Maybe our engineering and technology is not what it used to be. Plus, maybe the owners could afford better motors back then.
I'll tell you what. You call Jerry Jones out there at the Death Star, and you tell him that, and let's see what he says, because I don't think that owner had more money than Jerry.
Well, he's got a point about the roof, but aside from that, how the hell did the stadium have the room for the hot air balloon? Because they don't even make stadiums that tall these days. So. What the hell?
Man.
I mean, that's another concept that's not thought about, is the height that it takes to get a hot air balloon into and out of the stadium.
Yeah, and then some of the players, Set Shot Buford, the running Sheik or whatever his name was, the guy who does magic tricks that doesn't talk,
Bullet,
the two twins. That, when they play apart, they suck, but you put them together and they're like one great player. The whole thing is just, it's ridiculous. That coach, the whole coach who doesn't know anything about coaching, all he knows is catchphrases. Hey, you got to go the extra mile. Execution. Forget about drawing up X's and O's. Hey, let's get a cutoff. How about we get an inside pass? How about we throw a screen in there? This guy's reading motivational quotes out of the back of a book to coach the team.
He was Jason Garrett before Jason Garrett.
Damn.
Okay.
Whoa.
And then the topper on all. The top on all of it is the fact that the coach gets trumped by the psychologist. So everybody on the team is no longer listening to the coach. They can't perform if the psychic's not sitting courtside in her big velvet fish chair. Dude, okay, I'm done. One of y'all needs to go because I'm about
All right. I'll go next. So I want to start off with I don't know what the word should be, but how interesting it was to see the Marlboro ad, because in my lifetime, that's not a thing, So that, not really much criticism of that, but just very interesting to see.
Keep going. My bad.
It's all right. From maybe a PC standpoint, the midget reference definitely would probably not appear in there. But I did find it interesting that this kid knows more about team chemistry than Moses, a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I would say is that, kind of pointing to what Uncle JJ was saying, is that the whole trade thing, I don't know. I mean, I see the outlandishness of it, but think about this happens more in baseball, I think. Players getting traded mid-game, so I don't think that's necessarily that outlandish. I think there are players who just from their attitude, they don't make it that clear, but just from their attitudes and their demeanor, they're pretty clear they don't want to be somewhere. And I also think in the sport of NBA right now, there are just players these days who really don't give a shit. Not that they don't give a shit, but winning is everything for every player. It's a lot easier to be a loser when you're getting paid millions to do it. So that's something that's definitely different in today's aspect. But the whole concept of a team that needs to be of the same zodiac sign is just so outlandish, because first of all, you got to find players that are just even capable of playing the sport, right? They're not bringing in to steal from the movie Invincible. They're not bringing in bartenders from Philly to come.
Yeah, and you know that whole scene right there where they brought in, players to try out was a circus. Man, they had women in there,
kids,
jugglers.
Yeah,
fire. Guys twirling fire sticks. I'm like, dude, okay, you got to have some kind of basketball experience to go try out for an NBA team or a professional basketball team, whatever you want to call it. But still, that whole scene in itself was ridiculous.
Yeah. And then, obviously Moses he had a nice ass, excuse my language, but Rolls Royce, hence the background. But I don't really think there's a star athlete these days who thinks, man, I really need to get another Pisces or Capricorn on my team so we can win. But one thing I also want to know is that the song at 22 minutes, I don't know the name of the song. We'll have to go back and find it. I should have gone back, but I made this note. For whatever reason, it reminds me of the Space Jam song. Obviously, this movie predecessed Space Jam, but that song just really made me think of Space Jam. Let me see. Oh, times change, but the groupies don't. That's one thing that that's very, very clear from early on in this movie is the groupies. But this, obviously we're going to talk about our next movie, Smokey and the Bandit, but both these movies have very catchy songs. I had heard of the Smokey and the Bandit song before. Never heard of Fish That Say Pittsburgh, but I got to admit, this is a very catchy song. I love this song. One part.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's the Fish Say Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of songs it reminds me of, it also gave me car wash feels. I don't know. I don't know. It just
yeah. I can see that.
Well, the song definitely had a real 70s vibe to them.
Yeah.
One other aspect of the whole thing was when I was watching it is how just out of nowhere that little kid's sister or aunt, I don't remember what she was.
Sister. It was his
sister. Yeah.
Shows up pissed off at Dr. J.
Right.
Because the kid's not doing homework anymore. He's not doing housework. And he goes to show her how to play basketball on the blacktop, and they all of a sudden fall in love.
Thank you. I was going to say that. I was like, how does him playing she's mad at him for him not working on school and things. And so his next step is to go and have these slow-mo highlights on a park court. How does that make any sense? How does he prove her wrong with that?
And then from there they fall in love.
So are you two through kicking this movie in the nuts?
Well, I got a couple more points.
Oh wow!
More points. Let's go. Let's pile it on, baby. Pile it on.
This isn't pouring down on it, but I thought it was funny how the pastor snuck out of church. He's like, take it from here, deacon. And then
in the middle of the sermon.
Exactly, in the middle of the sermon. And he's dancing with his basketball sneakers on. But one thing, I guess, from a plot perspective that I felt like really wasn't explained was, how does this kid have access to Dr. J or, Moses? They don't really go into that. He just is able to get into
there.
Well, part of the backstory that isn't told is the assumption is he's like a ball boy or a towel boy for the team, and so he probably has had a history already knowing Moses and being around him. So him and Moses probably just have one of those it's like Jordan had relationships with a lot of the guys, with a lot of the security guys, right? Jordan used to gamble with those guys. He used to talk shit with those guys. Used to goof around with those guys. So my assumption is this kid was probably in that same, he probably got hired. He was the towel boy, got close to Moses, and so was able to bend his ear a little bit. But yeah, the it's preposterous that him making an angle or making a pitch like that, and all of a sudden it escalates to where they're meeting with the owner of the franchise within a day of talking about it. So I get it. I mean, it's interesting. One thing to note, the director of this movie, Gilbert Moses, also directed the movie Roots. So you got to imagine that this movie was made to be a funny comedy or, maybe a feel-good movie. I don't think there was any real seriousness in the plot. It was just probably something to goof around with. I thought Jonathan Winters playing, his little tidbits were, uninspiring because he plays on one end, he plays a very rich kind of almost idiot child owner for the Pittsburgh Pisces. And then on the other side, he plays his quote unquote evil twin brother who owns the LA team. Right. Yeah. And the other thing too, interestingly enough, is this movie could not be made today, given some of the racial tones that are, that are portrayed in the movie. I particularly like the one scene where right before the championship game, Jonathan Winters is describing to his general manager. He goes, "I want to get black gifts for the black players, white gifts for the white players." And you're like, it's just interesting how at that time there were so many of these things we could get away with that you cannot do today. I mean, absolutely aren't politically correct, number one, but number two, you would get shish kebabbed if you had any kind of these kind of undertones in the movie. One thing of note, I thought it was pretty cool. Some of the action scenes, it got to showcase a little bit of Meadowlark Lemon, who Jay, you and I both know he was a master of passing.
Ball
he was
handler, man. The dribbling,
the half court hook shot. Yeah. And then of course Kareem had a small bit player in there. I mean, he didn't really do much. I'm not even sure why they had Kareem in the movie, other than maybe just because he was
another big name because it was Kareem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who's gonna say no to Kareem?
But I agree. I think probably the best part of this movie was the musical score. It had a lot of catchy tunes. It was, it was fun to kind of revisit it. But certainly, when you scrutinize it, it's not going to hold up. So, with that said, why don't we go ahead and score this?
Hold on, Jay, can I make one more note before we do that?
God. Okay.
This is the last one. I promise. How the hell was the sidekick or whatever she was able to drive off on a bad tire? But that doesn't make any sense. She was able to make it all the way to the court.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that scene up because I made this note mentally in my head. Those two guys that kidnapped her were the most gangster-looking gangsters in the history of ever, man.
But the sorriest gangsters.
They had on the suits, the hats. These guys look like 1940s gangsters in the 1970s movie, man.
That's a good point.
Those two guys, man. But yeah, the whole, the biggest laugh that I got out of this whole movie though was the scene where Jonathan Winters playing the evil brother. He has his henchmen, and they're he's talking about kidnapping the psychic, and he says, "Yeah, I got to lose like 10 or 15 pounds."
Yeah.
So I tell you what, he tells the guy in the suit, "So you run like 10 paces ahead of me."
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets in the golf cart, starts driving behind him. Dude, I laughed so hard at that. I'm like, that's typical rich guy stuff right there, man. I lose 10 to 15 pounds, so you run so I can lose the weight.
Right.
All right. Well, Ron,
All right, well, let's get into scoring.
Let's get your score.
All right. So for a storyline, I gave it a 2. Obviously, we feel it's a very weak premise. Still, I guess a little fun to it. You know, I think it's more than anything poking fun, in a manner of speaking. Star power, I gave it a 3.5. You did have Dr. J and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in there, but you know, even Stockard Channing wasn't a big star. Jonathan Winters, I think, was just a bit player in this, so I gave the star power 3.5. Acting, I gave a 3, just because I think there were some parts that were good, but there were a lot of parts that were just terrible. And nothing against Dr. J, but obviously he made his fame and fortune being a basketball star. The emotional buy-in, I gave it a 2, just because it's, you kind of feel it's a little pathetic. It's funny in some parts, but I mean, it's just so incredulous to believe something like this. And then would I watch it again? Ironically, I would give it a 4. I really love this movie for whatever reason, just because maybe nostalgia. You could look at it and say, oh, it's just a kind of real quirky movie from my past. But I would definitely, if it was on, I'd watch it again, just nothing else, just to listen to the music score. So total score for me is a 14.5.
All right. I'll go next, and I just want to give a disclaimer that none of us discuss our scores before we start filming. So
no.
Right.
Plot, I give a 2 as well. There's just not a lot there. I mean, the whole concept of a team being based on, like I said, astrological sign is just so outlandish to me. Star power, I gave it a 3. I'm only 0.5 off of my dad. Obviously, you have the great Dr. J. You have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and obviously other actors that were before my time. So I give it a 3 on that.
Too. Metal Arc Land,
Yeah.
He was a pretty big name.
Yeah, obviously you guys know more about them than me, but sounds like they had at least some somewhat decent star power. Quality of acting, I gave it a 3 as well. It had its moments. Emotional buy-in too, because I love sports movies, but like this just didn't have the same dramatic type feel as maybe like a Coach Carter or even an Invincible does. So for me, I enjoyed the movie, but in terms of like, am I on the edge of my seat? It didn't have that it factor for me, so I give that a 2. Watch again, I'd give it a 3. I definitely would probably watch it again. Probably not the same amount of desire to go watch it as I had with Casablanca, but I don't see why I wouldn't watch it again. So total score of 13.
All right. Where to begin? All right. So plot, storyline, I gave it a 1. There's just way too many things in here that they're so, like Roland said, fantastical that could never, ever, ever, ever happen.
You got enough ever?
And you look at movies, even like Major League, where you kind of have the same premise where you have an owner who takes over a team that blows it up. But at the very least, she does it before the season starts, right? And the players that are bringing in are at least has-beens or never will be's that have some kind of interest or future in baseball, right? Whereas this movie, they're bringing in kids who can dribble. They're bringing in preachers and nuns and
the disc jockey.
The disc jockey. Yeah, it was just,
how tall was your mom?
yeah. So, yeah, the whole plot, the storyline, just a 1. Star power. This is why I rated it the highest. I definitely gave it a 4 for star power because of the fact of the players that they had in here. Julius Erving, Jonathan Winters, you guys, when you look at it in the context of now, yeah, he really wasn't that big. But at that time, Jonathan Winters was one of the best-selling comics in the country. He was on Mork and Mindy. He was a movie star in his own right in his time. Stockard Channing, of course, everybody knows from Grease and a couple of other really good movies. The athletes in the movie, Meadowlark Lemon, Dr. J, Kareem. There's no way around. The fact that you had some really big, athlete stars in the movie. And then, the bit players, the Emmett Walshes, the Nicholas Pryors in movies, Flip Wilson, who was a great comic book in this movie.
Yeah, Flip Wilson, original coach before
Debbie Allen was in this movie. And so
she was the groupies.
Yeah. And so, and you look at the commentators that were here with Chick Hearn and Marv Albert. So there was a lot of star power in this movie. So I gave that a 4 for the star power. As far as the the acting goes. I gave it a 2, dude, because it just there wasn't a whole lot of acting going on. It was Dr. J doing what Dr. J does and delivering lines in a flat kind of monotone. There really wasn't a lot of emotion for him. There wasn't a whole lot of, even the speech, the motivational speech he gave at the very end of the, there was no fire to that speech. It was just flat. Yeah. So I gave the acting a 2. Quality of the acting, the emotional buy-in, again, I gave it a 2. There was just nothing in this. There was nothing to the romance that, like I said, it just sprung up out of nowhere. There was nothing to there was nothing about this movie that pulled me in and said, man, this is going to grab my attention. And then when I watch it again, I gave that a 2 as well. Cause if it's on a Saturday morning and I'm flipping through the channel and they're going through some of the funnier scenes, I might stay with it. I'm never seeking this movie out again, ever, on my own, just because it's not going to happen for me. So I gave it a total score of 11.
Okay. Sounds like we're all pretty much in the same neighborhood, I think.
Well, I don't know if we're in the same neighborhood or not, but we're definitely in a neighborhood. So I may be in, you guys are kind of like in Richardson, and I think I'm more in East Dallas on that one. So,
oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the movie that is going up against a classic, and I think a movie that a lot of people have seen, a lot of people love. There's some iconic things about this movie, and that's Smokey and the Bandit. It's a movie about a couple of truck drivers, actually. Smokey is a truck driver, and a couple of rich guys seek him out because they want to make a bet with him. They want him to drive down to Texarkana from Atlanta, Georgia.
And the great state of Texas.
The great state of Texas, baby. And the whole thing is they want him to pick up 400 cases of Coors beer and bring it back to Atlanta for them to drink, which at that time is considered bootlegging, because for whatever reason, and there are still beverages like this where you can't buy them in certain parts of the country. So that's part of the premise. And then, they accept a bet from a couple of big shots, Big and Little Enos, who are, some rich guys from Texas who want him to bring back the beer. And, he recruits his partner, Jerry Reed, and, they take on the task of driving down to Texas in 28 hours to pick up 400 cases of Coors beer. So along the way, they pick up Sally Fields, who is running from a marriage from the son of Buford T. Justice, the great Jackie Gleason.
The great Buford T. Justice.
The great Jackie Gleason, man.
Great Jackie.
Who plays a Texas sheriff who is, finds he's pissed off because Sally Fields leaves his son at the altar, drives away, gets picked up by Burt Reynolds in the middle of the street, and starts to pursue the bandit across the country to try to get the girl back. And that's the entire premise of the movie. And this is one great big car chase. And it's one of the greatest car chases ever, man. This movie is presents us with one of the greatest iconic cars in movie history, Bandit's Firebird. And a couple of really, really big name actors in this movie. Jackie Gleason, who was a huge star. Burt Reynolds, a huge star. Sally Fields, a huge star. One of the great country and western singers of the late 70s, early 80s, and Jerry Reed. And introduces us to Fred, one of the best movie dogs in the history of the movies, man. So, RJ, since you're young and you know how I like to pick on you with older movies, let's get your take on Smokey on the Bandit first.
All right. So, I'm going to be honest. I know this movie kind of has a cult following. I love the song, like I said earlier. Both these movies have great songs. I've heard the song before. This is my first time actually really seeing the movie in its entirety. I've seen clips. But, kind of getting into it, to be honest, this movie's not that much greater. It's greater, but it's not that much greater, man, because, boy, this movie cannot be remade today. So getting into that, I want to start off by saying that Little Enos, I guess, Big Enos' son, Junior, whatever you want to call him, he sure does remind me of Gordo's Jerry Jr., man. Daddy! Oh, man. As soon as I saw that scene, man, I was like, man, that is Jerry Jr. in a physical form if I ever saw it. But some more aspects I want to talk about is, boy, is Cletus a glutton for punishment, because it didn't take much motivation for him to say, all right, I'm in. He just said, okay, pretty much.
Well, you saw the house full of kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a solid point. I mean, maybe he didn't have much else to do, or much, he's got to provide, but
he didn't want to be home, that's for sure.
Well, yeah,
that was my point. He just didn't want to be around all them kids and a nagging wife. So,
yeah. And then the sheriff's car. Okay, after that incident with the 18-wheeler, he's done. Okay, that car's done. The movie can end right there, because there's no way the sheriff makes it past that scene in that same car, at least, This movie, is just has some very racist and homophobic undertones.
Oh man,
that
you have no idea.
This movie could be set in the same time period, but you'd have to take these parts out, right? Like the part where he finds out that the sheriff of Arkansas is black, and he's like, "What is the world coming to?" You know what I mean? So, Burt Reynolds, to say this politely, in case we're trying to still make this episode kid friendly, he sure does talk about either being jumped or jumping a lot. If what you guys know what I mean in that context. Mm-hmm. This movie, in that sense, is also very what they would consider misogynistic these days.
Oh yeah.
And then I just want to talk about Sheriff Buford T. Justice. Man, that guy's ego was just the size of Texas, because he just did not know when to call it quits, even when he was out of his jurisdiction. And kind of expanding onto that, but when what state were they in? Either Arkansas or Alabama, I can't remember, where the state trooper pulls him over, and he's like, "How the hell are you driving this car?" basically. And the Buford tears into him like, "I'm a Texas Mountie, blah, blah, blah. I've been chasing." And it's like, he just let him go because he ripped into him. Why would you not call your higher up and be like, hey, I got this guy saying he's so-and-so. What's the chain of command here? You're just going to let this guy go with his car basically got turned into a convertible by an 18-wheeler. And you're just going to let him drive by? I don't think so, buddy.
Hey, you're missing a very, very important part of that scene, though. Buford T. Justice does tell him that car is evidence of the bandit.
Valuable
crimes.
evidence.
That's right.
Maybe so, but
in fact, the one scene where he gets mad at the trucker when they blow the door off, and he tells his son to get the car,
and he's holding it in the front. Yeah. That's the other thing. At the very least, the son should have been like, "Well, where do you want me to put it? The trunk, the back seat?" No, this dumbass just takes it into the front seat with him. What an idiot! Oh my god.
Or the part where they drive up and he says, he tells them to stand on the hood, says, what do you see? And he says, it's a football game, Daddy. Can we stand here and watch? His dad says, you can watch, and he starts backing off without him.
Oh,
well, let me put it to you this way, RJ. If Paul Williams reminds you of Jerry Jr., then Jr. Has to remind you of Stephen. Stephen Jones.
No, I can see that too, but to get into some more comments I had, there's no way in hell that the sheriff Buford catches up to Bandit at the gas station.
I know.
He put miles on him. How the hell is he going to catch up to him?
Relentless, and he's from Texas.
And not only that, this is kind of tying into the Fish that Saved Pittsburgh. Once again, we have a character driving off on a bad, in the previous movie, she drove off with a bad tire. He drives off from a hydraulic jack. There's no way that car's making it past that either. And then I just find, either Bandit, I don't know what, they don't really go into his age in this movie, or at least I don't remember. But at whatever age he is, he sure does happen to remember half these turns and back roads across the whole southern United States at such a young age. I just find that very hard to believe. And kind of going back to the son, it's so idiotic that when they're driving, he's holding his hat like this. You know what I mean? Like, oh God. And then we have,
that's one of the greatest bitch in the whole movie.
We have another, consecutive week where we have another woman that's well-traveled, and I don't mean in the tourism sense.
Whoa.
Whoa. But giving my man Cletus some props, I love the part where he drove over the bikes after he got his ass whooped. That was genius of him.
Yeah. Yep.
And for someone who's traveling at high speeds, obviously this is a movie. It's not real. Bandit sure does look back a lot. I don't know if I'm going over 100. I'm going to be looking back like I think I'd be looking more like this, but that's just my 2 cents. And then obviously, like we said, unlikely this movie could be remade in the current environment. Obviously, there is a helicopter in the movie. I wasn't anticipating that, but even still, with today's technology, there's just no way that this could happen, especially on such a, you might be able to get away from the cops, before the helicopters get in there, but that's a very short time period. Obviously, this is over a day's time. There's no way this movie happens with all the current technology. They could remake this movie. I think, you'd have to kind of, like I said, set it in the same time era, but take out a lot of the what do you call it? The color commentary. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, that wouldn't be allowed these days, but it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, last and final point for me, I think it's a good movie, as an entire piece of work. The Trans Am, especially the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, is such a great car. I love it. In 2017, not sure if you're aware, Uncle JJ, I know my dad is, but they rolled out a Camaro-based platform, kind of reimagining the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am, and I really wanted to get one. Obviously, I ended up getting my truck instead, but it's even still, I mean, it was still such a unique, great car. I can't. Obviously, I love cars. I love sports too. So from that perspective, these were, a good matchup in that sense. But in terms of the entire like plot and stuff, they just got lucky as well. So, good movie overall. That's, let's move on past me.
All right, Roll, let's get your take.
Well, again, this is another movie that we grew up watching multiple times. It was definitely in our wheelhouse based on our era. Not only that, Dad was a huge Burt Reynolds fan. So we got exposed to this movie multiple times.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can get away with in this movie in the context in which it was made. Obviously, the character of Buford T. Justice would be almost impossible to replicate today. And Jackie Gleason played it with such flair. So much so that they made 2 more movies, Smokey and the Bandit 2 and Smokey and the Bandit 3. What I really liked about it, obviously, is you kind of felt the chemistry going on, even though it was really, I guess a subtle undertone of the movie, but the chemistry between Burt Reynolds and Sally Field. And I think, honestly, Jerry Reed's character in its own right had some great moments. I too love the scene where he goes into to get a sandwich and gets his ass kicked, but then comes out and runs over the cars. I also like the ending when they're just outside the fairgrounds and the bandit is pretty much ready to throw in the ropes, and Cletus says, "Get the hell out of my way, then. Let me show you."
Yeah,
barreling through the roadblock, and then the way whoever the stunt driver was for this movie, it was an awesome job the way he handled that 18-wheeler around certain curves. And man, when he came into the fairgrounds, just hauling ass, how he took that one turn and the truck doesn't topple over anything and just just cruises along.
The truck had to be empty. Had to be.
Well, yeah, of course, but still, I mean, can you imagine how difficult it is though to come with any kind of speed?
Yeah.
Even if you speed up the film to some degree, which they did in this movie, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, but there are scenes when the Trans Am is on the highway, and all of a sudden it just seems to be going so much faster than it really is. Anyway, there were some other great scenes in there when Buford T. Justice thinks he's busting the bandit at the mobile whorehouse, and it turns out to be the captain.
That's a great scene.
Oh yeah, I love that scene. That's a good one. There were certain things that were unbelievable, like when Bandit was trying to get away from the convoy of cops, and he winds up finding the truckers, and they do the rocking chair, or what's he called? They put it. I can't remember.
The rocking chair.
Yeah, and so how they position to let the bandit in, and then the truck blocks the police. I mean, you can see from the camera angles clearly that the cop car could see the Trans Am just by looking over. I mean, how could you not see the Trans Am even though the truck was blocking your way? That, and then the rally where the bandit calls I guess the best way to say the teeny boppers. It had all the hot rods and everything, and they staged the traffic jam, if you will, to give Bandit some time to get away. So there were some incredulous scenes. I agree with RJ. The helicopter, once the helicopter was up in the air, the Bandit ain't getting away. I'm sorry, he ain't getting away. They know where they could attract him anywhere he wanted to go. But it's a fun movie. Again, nostalgia, I think, on our part. I think the car speaks for itself. It's an awesome car. You guys know that growing up, I had a Corvette in my senior year of high school. It didn't have the T-tops like the
Trans Am.
The Trans Am did. It had the removable top, the hard top, removable. But no, that T-top on the Trans Am was just, it was awesome. It was black. Loved the car. And, even Cletus's 18-wheeler was badass. That scene of the stagecoach painted on the side of the truck was iconic as Bandit. Well. That's right.
Bandit too.
So overall, I mean, nothing but good things to say about the movie. Cheesy, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of a thin storyline too, because I mean, think about it. The premise is that Bandit, as a and one of the things you said, RJ, about his age, really, I got the sense that the Bandit character, while he was famous to some degree as being
relatively young.
Well, no. I wasn't going to say young. I think he was starting to get past prime, because you'll see if you were to watch Smokey and the Bandit 2, the sequel, which occurs just a couple years after this one, you get to see that the Bandit starts to deal with the fact that he's becoming middle-aged,
washed up.
Washed up.
Okay, gotcha.
So he has a personal conflict in the other movies about who he is and who he wants to be, because he's grown up always being this favorite. Everybody loves him. He's almost got like a Robin Hood aspect to his personality, where he's always trying to get away from the cops, and everybody's more than happy to help him out. Kind of that lovable scoundrel, if you will. But it's thin, but overall, good movie. Jay?
Yeah. This is one of those movies that I wouldn't put it in my top 5. It probably would make it into my top 10 though. This is one of those movies that no matter what I'm doing, if it's on TV, I'm stopping down. From the iconic song, RJ talking about eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking, to the iconic Trans Am, which, RJ, I know you're a car enthusiast. So here's a little fun fact about that particular Trans Am. So this movie takes place in 1976.
Yep.
So in 1976, you know how much that Trans Am would have cost to buy, RJ? That particular model?
Ooh, $10,000.
$5,000.
Damn.
So equate that. I put that into an inflation calculator just to see what that amounts to in 2020. That's
$50,000.
equivalent of getting that car for under $23,000.
Wow.
Yeah, brand new. So the funny, one of the funniest scenes to me is when Big Enos and Little Enos meet up with the Bandit. The way Little Enos just kind of insults him when him and the Bandit start going at each other. And he goes, "Well, why would I want to go to Texarkana and bring back beer? Because he's thirsty, dummy."
Yeah.
And then when Bandit accepts the challenge, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna need to buy a car." And Big Enos. So these guys are so fucking rich that Little Enos is just rolling with a big old, just a wad of money in his pocket, and he starts telling him, "Give him the money, son." And he starts peeling off, $100 bills, and he's like, "Faster car," and he's peeling off more money. He's faster, and Little Enos is looking at him, pissed, boy, And the whole premise is, if you can do this, then what we're going to do is we're going to buy you a brand new Peterbilt semi, which at that time cost $80,000. So even back then, 18-wheelers were expensive, but they were not cheap. So if you think about a $5,000 car equating to what amounts to $25,000 now, extrapolate that out, to a $10,000 car being $50,000. So just do a little math here.
400,000.
Yeah, I mean,
damn.
with inflation, those 18-wheelers, again, they're just not cheap. $365,000. So your dad did that math pretty quick in his head, man. But yeah, so the whole chase aspect of the movie, I think the biggest downfall I say is just the way Bandit and Sally Field's character meet. Is just that she's standing on the side of the road and she walks out into the middle of the road in front of a speeding car, because it's not like he's driving 30 miles an hour,
Yeah.
She just kind of walks out in front of his car and he's able to stop and not hit her, coming as fast as he is. In real life, he would have splattered her all over his windshield. But then picking her up and them developing the relationship and her not telling him in the very beginning that the reason why she's running is because she's running from, Junior and his dad. And so Bandit has no idea why they're chasing him to begin with, until they get into that one. And man, the lingo that they use in this movie, all the CB talk and,
right.
The choke and puke and the, breaker and the over and the handles that they use, Bandit and Snowman and
it's funny,
Frog.
Jay,
and
I don't know if you remember, Jay, but we used to have a CB at the house.
Dad used to have one.
Yeah, Dad and them were all into the CBs. And so do you remember what Dad's CB handle was?
Oh, man. No, I don't. I really, really don't.
El Toro. And each one of us, I was Torito number 1. You were Torito number 2. Gabriel was Torito number 3, and so on and so forth. You don't remember?
No, man, I don't remember that. But that's the culture of the 70s, man. That whole CB culture, and the way that and there are some. This movie does take a lot of liberties, just like there's some things you don't believe in the fish that say Pittsburgh could ever happen. There's some things in this movie that could never happen. I mean, even back then, there's no way he's outrunning a CB. I'm sorry. I don't care how fast the car goes. All it takes is for one of those cops to, up the road to say, hey, man, this guy's coming down this route, because as smart as Bandit and Snowman's plan is to switch radio signals every half hour or every hour, whatever they're doing, going, odd channels, the cops can do the same thing. Like,
Sure.
hey, man, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go even every half hour, blah, 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 blah. So they're not listening into the cops, conversations. They would have caught him long before he made it to however far he made it. I don't care how fast that car is. You're not outrunning a CB radio. That's just the bottom line. But again, like Roland said, man, this is just a fun movie. It's just it's just a movie that it's a joy to watch. The stunts when they jump over the bridge, because the black sheriff, like you said, the guy's like, well, if that guy don't get in front of my way, I'm going to run him off the road. He goes, if you cause any damage to this, I don't care if your daddy is the mayor. It's coming out of your paycheck. But he's getting away. Oh, man, that bridge has been out for 6 months, and they think they have him. And Bandit just floors it and jumps the bridge while the rest of them don't even make it,
Right.
The scene at where they're stopping to get gas.
Yeah.
The scene, and they fill up that entire diesel with $70 worth of gas.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, bro, is as RJ alluded to, the fact that Buford T. Justice in the car that he was using would have been out of commission right after the first.
Oh yeah, man!
With the diesel truck, that Trans Am that would have been jocked up too, making that jump. It was always, if you remember the days of the Dukes of Hazzard.
The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
How all those cars, when you see them land, how you just see their suspension. Sometimes you could even see like the frame.
The frame.
Bend. You would think, oh my God, there's no way that he's gonna, he's gonna. That car is still drivable at that speed, because there would have been some sort of damage. Even if nothing else, just to the suspension.
And blowing out a tire or something, man. Oh, my
gosh, yeah.
But, it has some of the most iconic characters, along with iconic cars and iconic songs in the Bandit and Buford T. Justice, man. I mean, there's the guy's got, websites devoted to him. He's got T-shirts and mugs, and he's
what-
got Bufordisms.
What's his favorite? What's his most famous line there, bro?
Dude, oh my favorite. Okay, so this is probably one of the funniest lines and my most favorite line in any movie, and that's when Junior, I can't remember what Junior says to him, but he looks at Junior. He goes, "There is no way," as he's lighting a cigarette and putting a cigarette in his mouth at the same time, right? "There is no way that you could come from my loins. When we get home, the first thing I'm gonna do is punch your mama in the mouth."
Oh yeah,
Dude.
Well, and what's so great about that line is that it didn't matter how many times Dad watched that stupid movie, he would always break out laughing whenever he got to that line.
I laugh every time I hear that line too, man. I watched it yesterday. Yesterday was the first time I've seen Smokey and the Bandit in probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. It's been a while since I've seen it. Not a very long time, but it's been a couple of years. And I was sitting up front, and my dog, lady was laying on the floor, and she was playing with her toy. And that scene came on, man, and he said that line, and I laughed so loud, she just jumped and she looked at me. Every time I watch that movie and every time I hear that line, dude, I just crack up too. It's so funny.
And you talk about inflation and prices. The scene where the Bandit and Carrie, which is Sally Field's character, stop at the Choke and Puke, and he orders a couple of hamburgers, and Buford T. Justice walks in and orders a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper. And Dr. Pepper. And he pays, and Bandit pays $1.50 for that. Nowadays, you can't even get the damn Dr. Pepper for $1.50. You're lucky if you get a Dr. Pepper for $1.50.
Well, talking about that scene, the funny part for me was when he asked Junior if he wants anything, and Junior goes, "Hush puppies," and he said, "We don't got no damn time for that."
And then he goes to
like,
inside the.
Why ask?
Well, and just how fast they get him the Diablo sandwich. I mean, he walks in, he orders it, and they have it to him like within 30 seconds after he walks in.
Well, and that's that's one of the biggest mysteries of my life. What the hell is a Diablo sandwich, man? I really would like to know, because I wouldn't mind trying it just once. What a Diablo sandwich is. I want to be able to walk into a restaurant and go, "Give me a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper."
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is great to know that in the 70s, the Texan and Dr. Pepper stereotype was still alive.
Hey, it's there, buddy. But again,
do you remember what county he was the sheriff of?
He was from Texarkana.
No, he was from Portague County.
Portague County. Oh man,
Portague County.
Just the scene again. Roland, where you said where he catches that chief of police in the mobile whorehouse. That's one of the funniest scenes. And I don't care if you're the president of the United States, because he thinks it's the Bandit.
Yeah, he goes,
that's information to give
the Bandit.
And and all the truckers and people out there with CBs that help the Bandit along the way. The Wicked Witch of the North. The old lady that got into the wreck. Oh, the Good Witch of the North. But some of the CB lingo, you hear it and you kind of cringe, like that girl that's at the drive-in. The scene you're talking about, Roland, where all the little teeny boppers get together and they pull the train so that the police can't catch the Bandit.
Right.
But y'all, come on, Bandit. You sexy little thing. You hear all that stuff, and you just kind of cringe, and you're like, oh God, man. And but yeah. And even some of the lingo talking between Snowman and Bandit. Break 19, where's your 6 at? And you got a county, you got a bubble gum. What does he call it?
Bubble gum Texas machine or something like that.
A Texas bubble gum behind you, something like that. So some of the lingo that they use is kind of cringeworthy, but again, dude, it's just a fun movie overall. If I were Gene Siskel's absent hairpiece, I would definitely give this one 2 thumbs up. But I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and score these movies because we're already getting up there in time. So let's go with you first, RJ.
All right. So plot-wise, I gave this a 3. I think, the premise I kind of like. Obviously, as a car enthusiast, I was really, I don't want to say touched, but I liked the movie from that aspect. Obviously, from the standpoint, it just couldn't happen these days. Obviously, you need a lot of those smaller towns. Just because, take a town like Frisco, right? Like, there's no way you could do that in going through a town like Frisco these days. So 3. Right. Star power, gave it a 3 as well. Quality of acting, 3. Emotional buy-in, 3. Because same thing. I mean, I found myself more on edge and more kind of invested in this movie than I did with The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. And I think probably for me that a lot of that has to do with it's a car movie. And then watch again 4. I probably would definitely watch this again. So overall score of 16.
All right, Roll. Let's get yours.
All right. So plot 3, star power 3.5, acting 3.5, emotional buy-in a 3, and watch it again a 4. Absolutely. So that gives me a total of 17.
All right. And then for me, plot wise, I gave it a 3. Star power, I gave it a 4 just because it's got, three really high tone actors in it with Burt Reynolds and Sally Fields and Jackie Gleason. And then, me being a country fan, a country music fan, Jerry Reed is a staple, because he did most of the songs for the movie. A lot of that singing was all Jerry Reed, and that guitar playing is all Jerry Reed. And RJ, I know you said you've heard that song. You need to go back and listen to some of Jerry Reed's music from the 70s, 80s, man. He's a great guitar player.
No, definitely.
The quality of the acting, I gave it a 3. Burt Reynolds being Burt Reynolds, but Jackie Gleason was Buford T. Justice. I just don't see anybody else who could play that part. I just really don't. Right. And then emotional buy-in, I gave it a 3. And then would I watch it again? I gave that a 5, man. I would watch this movie all day, every day. So I gave it a total score of 18.
18.
So overall, that's going to give that a 33, 43. It's going to give
looks
that
like
51. And then it's 24, 28 and a half, 38 and a half for Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. So we have a clear winner this week. It's not nearly as tight a contest as it was last week with the 2 Oscar winners. Neither one of these movies could ever be confused with an Oscar winner, but man, Smokey and the Bandit is just great. But yeah, that's our movie review for this week, guys. Make sure you get out and vote. RJ's going to put the polls up on Sunday. He'll put the poll up. I'll put a poll up out on Facebook, and we'll get some combined scores, and let's see how these movies do against each other.
Alrighty, guys. Well, it was a good episode. Love doing this with y'all. I just want to thank all of our viewers for locking in with us here on the Now That You Mention It podcast. We all know how valuable everyone's time is, so we appreciate every minute that you give us. We really enjoy doing this, and whether it's only 5 of you watching us or hopefully one day 5 million, we appreciate the time that you give us to let us make fools of ourselves. And if you don't mind, we'd just like to ask for a few more seconds of your valuable time to give us some feedback. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or Podbean, please follow, turn on the notifications, and leave us a rating. For those of you who are watching us in this great visual format that we've started to develop on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and click the bell to get our notifications when our new content's uploaded. To see what we're doing on our social formats, go follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit by typing in Now That You Mention It podcast and hitting the follow button on those platforms. And with that being all said, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And with one week coming to a close and a new one beginning, we want to encourage you all to make it another great chapter in your book of life. And last but certainly not least, a big thank you to Jesse P, because we couldn't do this without you.
That's right.
Amen. And one last thing before we go. Yeah. By the time this airs, happy birthday, RJ.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Happy birthday.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a great night.
Love you. See you guys later.
Love you.